you smell what the rock is cooking? The rock says, the rock says, the rock says, the rock.
I hear voices in my head, they counsel me, they understand, they talk to me. You got your rules in your religion, all designed to keep you safe. But when rules start getting broken, you start questioning your faith. I have a voice that is my savior, hates to love and loves to hate. I have a voice that has the knowledge and the power to your fate. I hear voices crying, I see.
pray my soul is mine to keep my soul and never step outside this bed, never into all the evil, now back from the dead.
Are you scared?
Be here.
American badass, watch me kick. You can roll with rock or porno flicks. I'm like Amazing Grace. I'm gonna some after I rock this place. Super fly, living double wide, sidecar my glide, so Joe C can ride. Full this air, bringing flash and flare. Got the long hair swing.
Dead man walking.
Keep rolling, 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 rolling. 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 Now on fire, hands up, now hands down. Back up, tell me what you wanna do now. Breathe in, now breathe out. Hands up, now hands down. Back up, tell me what you wanna do now. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Keep rolling, 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 rolling.
Dead man walking. Dead man walking.
You've done it now. You've done and made a big mistake. And I can't allow you to think you can just walk away. So turn around and face the piper you're gonna pay. 'Cause the end is now. This is gonna be your judgment day.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Wrestling Talk Show with Reese Willock Jones and
Sean Randy Smith, as we say thank you to probably one of wrestling's greatest icons.
yes, let's play a game of Guess the Theme, shall we? Because, as most people will be aware by now, the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Calloway, more commonly known as The Undertaker, has officially retired from professional wrestling.
At the grand age of,
55.
and it all started all the way back long ago, and we will take you through the highlights and lowlights.
Yes, well, his wrestling career all started in really 1989 when he joined a promotion we dare not mention, but probably will have to mention slightly later on in his career.
Yes.
But things changed for him when he signed for the World Wrestling Federation, as it was known then, in October of 1990, and then on November 22nd, 1990, would make his debut at Survivor Series,
Yes.
bringing with him a famous quote from Gorilla Monsoon: "Look at the size of that man."
And another one from Hall of Famer, Roddy Piper. Look at the size of that ham hock.
When in his debut, he would team up with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, in a traditional Survivor Series elimination match,
Yes.
and would eliminate Coco Beware with a tombstone pile driver, and he also eliminated the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Kickstart what would be known as the Dead Man.
So then we go into the early parts of 1991 when he started a program with Jimmy Snuka, which would lead into the first of what would be 21 straight victories at WrestleMania,
Yes.
when he would defeat Jimmy Snuka in essentially a squash match.
Which was around 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
Then, a year later, at Survivor Series 1991, he would defeat Hulk Hogan with a little bit of assistance from Ric Flair
When Undertaker tombstone Hulk Hogan on a steel chair, placed by Ric Flair.
to win his first of 4 WWE Championships. Then he's kind of went a bit all over the place there because he was not really involved in the title picture that much after that, because he would lose it immediately back to Hogan. Then they would have the Royal Rumble, and we would go into WrestleMania 7. No, 8 even, excuse me, where he would go against Jake the Snake Roberts.
To make himself 2-0 at WrestleMania.
Yes, then in 1993, I know it sounds like we're skipping ahead, but we're simply covering his career highlights at the minute.
Yes.
He would go up against Giant Gonzalez in what would be his only disqualification victory at WrestleMania.
And one of his more poorer performances at WrestleMania.
Yes, this wasn't exactly a burn down the building kind of match.
No.
He would sit out WrestleMania 10 due to injury,
Yeah.
but would come back again in what part of 1994?
Either mid or late.
Yes, but 1994 would be when he would start a little feud with a person called Mankind.
Yes. We do literally mean feud.
That would go on for several years.
It would.
For at WrestleMania 9, no, what was I talking about? 11, he would go on against King Kong Bundy. Again, a short match. Things wouldn't necessarily get a bit more interesting at WrestleMania until WrestleMania 12.
Yes, in 1996.
When he would go up against Diesel.
Otherwise known as Kevin Nash.
Then things would really pick up for The Undertaker as we went into 1997, because the championship picture at this point was a bit all over the place.
It was.
Shawn Michaels had lost his smile after winning the championship from Psycho Sid.
Yeah.
And would end up losing for vacating the championship. They would give the championship back to Bret Hart, where he would lose it the next night to Psycho Sid, setting up a match between The Undertaker and Psycho Sid at WrestleMania 13.
In which he would not only go 6-0, but he would win the WWF Championship.
For a second time. And this time it would be a relatively healthy run where he would hold it until SummerSlam of that year.
Yeah.
Now we go into a relatively interesting moment,
Yes.
because it was in a Hell in a Cell match between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker.
Bad blood.
Oh yeah, well, that Kane, The Undertaker's half brother,
That's gonna be Kane.
would would debut, ripping the door off of the cell and performing a tombstone pile driver to The Undertaker.
Obviously win Shawn Michaels the match, but then obviously that would start a rivalry with Kane in the process.
That would go on pretty much for their entire career, stop and start.
Up until WrestleMania in 1998.
That would result in one of the most one-sided matches that The Undertaker's ever been in. Because even though The Undertaker would win the match,
Make himself go 7-0 at WrestleMania.
Kane would come out the better one overall, tombstoning The Undertaker afterwards. Now, there was a little bit of business for The Undertaker to supposedly take care of here, as was the case following the multi-on screw job a few months earlier. The Undertaker basically told Vince that you've got to face Bret Hart for what you did to him. And there has always been a story that Undertaker has basically said to Shawn Michaels, if you don't go out there and do business, I'm going to beat you to a pulp.
Pretty much. And what did Shawn Michaels go and do?
He did the business. Now, Undertaker would go through a few transitions here at having a few more rivalries with The Undertaker of Kane, and feuding with Austin over the WWE Championship.
And we will mention a very infamous moment, which we'll get to in a moment, involving Mankind in the latest years.
Yes, it was... Actually, that was 1998, King of the Ring, where Mankind practically killed himself by going off
Twice.
being thrown off a cell and through an announce table, then chokeslammed on top of a cell,
which would give way to the concrete canvas below.
Oh yes, but the cell was not supposed to give way in that bump.
No, but it did.
Then we go back to WrestleMania 15, and in the Ministry of Darkness days.
Yes, where he will take on Big Boss Man, and he would literally hang Big Boss Man from the cell.
Yes, after
to go 8-0.
After the match. Now, I think it was Fully Loaded, 1999.
Something like that.
McMahon was determined to get the title off of Austin, and would prove to be the higher power of the ministry, and would ultimately get the title off of Austin, giving it back to The Undertaker for a third time.
Giving it was me, Austin, so on and so forth.
Unfortunately, his run did not last long because he would lose it back to Austin the night after King of the Ring of the same year.
Pretty much.
Then he would go off and form a tag team with the Big Show, and they would have a few unholy alliances, pardon the pun,
pretty much,
with the Rock and Shock connection.
Yes, a very notable tag team for one of us.
Over the tag team titles, and they would pass them back and forth a couple of times.
Yes.
Then it was around about the end of the summer time of 1999, The Undertaker would get injured. And this is where we would see a complete 180 in his gimmick.
Yes, where he would go from being the dead man to the American badass.
Yes, in 2000, during the Iron Man match between The Rock and Triple H at Judgment Day, The Undertaker would come to the aid of The Rock, who was being beaten up by the McMahon-Helmsley regime. Unfortunately, this would be seen by special guest referee Shawn Michaels, who would disqualify The Rock, allowing Triple H to win the title.
That's a different story for a different matter.
Then The Undertaker, Kane, The Rock would all team up at King of the Ring, in which a person who would get the fall would become champion.
And
then we go to SummerSlam of 2000, where we see yet another match between Kane and The Undertaker.
pretty much.
And in late 2000, The Undertaker would insert himself back into the WWFE Championship picture by challenging Kurt Angle.
It would.
And not just at Survivor Series, but also in that 6-man Hell in a Cell.
But things would get a bit weird.
Yes, then we went to the 2001 Royal Rumble match, which would kind of sort of set up what would be the big feud in the beginning part of 2001.
Where he would use with Triple H.
Yes, going into WrestleMania against Triple H, in which he would become... Where is it?
The 3-time champion.
9-0. Then at Backlash, they would it would be the 2-man power trip taking on the Brothers of Destruction in the title for title match. with the Intercontinental, WWE and Tag Team titles on the line,
Yep.
in which two-man power trip would win.
Unfortunately.
Then the Judgment Day, Kane would challenge Triple H for the Intercontinental Championship, whilst The Undertaker would challenge Austin for the WWE Championship.
And was it successful in that championship match?
With a little bit of help from Triple H, he was not, although Austin was not so helpful to Triple H.
No.
Triple H would get injured the following night on Raw, essentially breaking up a two-man power trip.
Yes, with his torn ACL.
And this is where things would take another interesting turn with the introduction of the Invasion angle.
WWF/E against WCW and ECW.
Things started to get weird around this point because the then wife of The Undertaker, Sarah, was being stalked by a person who turned out to be DDP.
Yes, and as he said, Undertaker, you never saw it coming.
So then Undertaker and Kane would win the WCW Tag Team Championships, whilst Kanyon and DDP were the WWF Tag Team Champions, and they would meet at SummerSlam inside a steel cage, not somewhere you want to be.
No, and with that, Undertaker and Kane won the tag team titles.
Yes, and that would ultimately end that feud. Then The Undertaker kind of took a backseat rivalry-wise, although he had some tag team title defenses to take care of.
Yep.
But then that would lead us to Survivor Series, winner takes all.
Where he would be on the winning side.
And the Alliance was officially out of business, but then The Undertaker would turn heel.
In the following process.
Yes, and forcing people like Jim Ross to join the Vince McMahon Kiss My You-Know-What club.
Oh, that's going by. God.
Then we go into Vengeance, where he would target Rob Van Dam and the Hardcore Championship.
In which Undertaker won after chokeslamming RVD off the stage to win the Hardcore Championship for the first time in his career.
Then we skip forward to the 2002 Royal Rumble, which saw The Undertaker eliminated by Maven.
That's a name from the past, former Tough Enough winner. And Undertaker took offense to that and eliminated Maven from the map and smashed a steel chair in his face with trouble.
Yes, and this would lead to a Hardcore Championship match between the two, which would then include some back and forth issues between The Undertaker and The Rock.
Yes.
Which would lead to a match at No Way Out.
It would.
Which again would involve Ric Flair, except this time he did not assist The Undertaker. In fact, he cost The Undertaker, which would lead to WrestleMania 18.
In which this was a no disqualification match when, despite the stipulation, Undertaker won the match and made it 10-0.
Yes, then at Judgment Day, The Undertaker would defeat Hulk Hogan again in some controversial manners to become the WWE Undisputed Champion, as the title was being referred to at the time.
Yes.
Then he would defend it against Triple H, who had returned and won and lost the title at King of the Ring. And despite some outside interference from The Rock, would retain the title, but would lose the title at Vengeance in a triple threat match featuring Kurt Angle and
The Rock.
Rock. Then this is kind of where Undertaker turned back into being a face, because he would take on Test at SummerSlam.
Yes, he was part of the Un-American stable at the time.
Then he would have a few matches with Brock Lesnar over the WWE Championship, one of which inside Hell in a Cell.
In which Lesnar managed to win.
Then we did not see The Undertaker for a while due to The Big Show,
Yes.
and that he would return as the number 30 entrant in the 2003 Royal Rumble match.
In which, unfortunately, he would lose.
Yes, it would come down between him and Lesnar would duck him out.
Pretty much.
Then this would ultimately lead to his WrestleMania 19 match, which originally was scheduled to be a tag team match.
Undertaker and Nathan Jones against A-Train and The Big Show. That Nathan Jones was pulled from the match.
In which Undertaker would still win despite being on a 2-in-1 handicap match.
And that would be his last WrestleMania win as the American Badass.
Yes, because later on in the year we will tell you what happened. But
Yes.
After WrestleMania, The Undertaker would kind of turn his attention to how Vince McMahon was treating Stephanie McMahon, who was at the time general manager of SmackDown.
God, that's going back.
And he was basically saying, I don't like the way you're treating your daughter. They went back and forth over the past several months, including matches with A-Train and things like that. This would lead to a Buried Alive match at Survivor Series, in which Kane would again stick his head into The Undertaker's business.
By making the door on the digger explode, blinding the Undertaker in the face.
Yes, and helping Vince McMahon bury The Undertaker. This would see the Dead Man reappear at WrestleMania 20 inside Madison Square Garden in a match against Kane.
And Undertaker also had his longtime manager, Paul Bearer, back at his side.
Yes, and here The Undertaker would go 12 WrestleMania. Then we go into a interesting program that The Undertaker had, although it was a short one, with the Dudley Boys and Booker T.
Pretty much it was short. Pretty much. Nothing really to it.
Then The Undertaker would go up against JBL for the WWE Championship several times.
Yep.
Before the Viper/Legend Killer would make his intentions known
I would.
and challenge The Undertaker for the World Heavyweight Champ. At WrestleMania 21.
In which I lost to make Undertaker go 13-0 at WrestleMania.
However, Randy Orton would pick up the victory at SummerSlam.
And also No Mercy.
Yes, but then this would lead to a Hell in a Cell match between the two.
At Armageddon in 2005.
Yes, then 2000 Undertaker would take a short leave of absence, then confront Kurt Angle at the end of his World Heavyweight Championship match to say he wanted the title. Although Angle would escape with the World Heavyweight Championship, Mark Henry then decided he had an issue with The Undertaker and would have a casket match at WrestleMania 22.
And unfortunately, the Undertaker made Mark Henry, rest in peace, going 14-0 in the process.
Yes, then we go back to The Undertaker and Heidenreich.
Heidenreich, again, that's a name going back.
And then The Undertaker and Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah.
And then he would team up with Kane at times to challenge Mr. Kennedy and MVP.
It would essentially be a quite back and forth there.
Then, after beating Mr. Kennedy in a last live match, no pun intended,
Yep, no pun intended indeed.
at Armageddon, we go on to the Royal Rumble match.
In 2007.
Now, this is going back to Undertaker having a few issues with the Great Khali.
Who was, a force to be reckoned with.
And Great Khali would come out to the Royal Rumble, dominate everyone.
Eliminating quite a few superstars.
And then we would go to the number 30 entrant.
Gong.
The Undertaker would come out, eliminate the Great Khali on his own, and then would go on to proceed to win the entire match.
In which he'd go on to challenge the World Heavyweight Championship with SmackDown.
He would challenge Batista, and just like he did 10 years earlier against Psycho Sid,
he would win the World Heavyweight Championship and go 15-0 in the process.
yes. Unfortunately, his reign didn't last long due to a little slippery character called Edge.
Yes, who cashed in his money in the bank briefcase.
After Mark Henry would lay out The Undertaker.
Pretty much.
So The Undertaker would be out of action until Unforgiven, who would then beat Great Khali. There were several issues back and forth over the World Heavyweight Championship between Edge, Batista, and The Undertaker.
Yep.
All of which would ultimately lead to WrestleMania 24.
In which Edge would defend his World Heavyweight Championship against Undertaker, but Edge tapped out to a new hold of the Undertaker used to call Hell's Gate.
But again, his reign wouldn't last long due to Vicky Guerrero crashed in Hell's Gate as a illegal submission hold and would strip The Undertaker of the championship. Then The Undertaker was expelled from SmackDown after losing a TLC match for the championship, with a little bit of help from the family.
Yep.
But The Undertaker would get his payback when he was reinstated after a few things came out at SummerSlam 2008. But after that, The Undertaker would go back setting his eyes on the World Championship.
He would.
And Batista would retain the championship over The Undertaker at Cyber Sunday. But a bigger match was in The Undertaker's future.
It was.
As we skip forward to WrestleMania 25, 11 years ago.
Shawn Michaels.
Yes, match of the night, quite possibly match of the decade.
At the time.
We had this Shawn Michaels going against The Undertaker, in which The Undertaker would go 17-0 at WrestleMania.
WrestleMania.
Skip forward a couple of months.
Where we go to Elimination Chamber.
I was going to say go to SummerSlam.
Oh yes.
When CM Punk had just won the World Heavyweight Championship from Jeff Hardy. Only for a gun to go off and The Undertaker to appear where Jeff Hardy was. Now, CM Punk would worm his way out of the championship match at breaking point of that year.
Through controversial circumstances.
However, at Hell in a Cell, he would not be as lucky.
No.
When The Undertaker would win his third World Heavyweight Championship and would be given a decent run. In which even quite possibly one of my favourite quotes was uttered in a championship defense against then tag team champions Big Show and Chris Jericho, in which one of the fans yelled at Jericho to go back to Toronto.
I'm in Winnipeg, you idiot.
Yes. But unfortunately, this would come to an end at the Elimination Chamber when, as if being burnt wasn't enough,
Yes, did get burned on his way to the ring.
he was cost the title by Shawn Michaels, who had challenged The Undertaker to a WrestleMania rematch. The Undertaker basically said you need to win the Royal Rumble, which he didn't. So Michaels took matters in his own hands. But if it's so good you're going to do it twice, you need to up the stakes. And this was Streak versus Career.
And unfortunately for Shawn Michaels, not only would he lose the second time to make Undertaker go 18-0 at WrestleMania, he had to retire as well.
Yes, overall that didn't stay like that for long, and we shall tell you what happened between those two again when we come back at you with part 2 of this look back at the career of The Undertaker.